So with that, I'd like to turn this over to the Department Director for the Department of Military and Veteran Affairs, Major General Paul Rogers.
Thank you, Terry, and for introducing me. And I am Major General Paul Rogers. I'm the Director of the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs. And without microphones, I'll try to project. If anyone in the back of the room can't quite hear me, please signal to me and I'll raise the volume a bit without trying to yell at you. I'm fortunate to be also the Adjutant General for the Michigan National Guard. And our department is fairly unique, and I'll touch on that during my comments and kind of give some definition of the department construct. But today we're here to talk about veteran and military suicide, behavioral health. It is a significant problem across the country. It is a problem here in Michigan, and it's something we're focused on and have been for a number of years. And with amazing support out of the administration and our legislators, there are resources and focus that is provided to that particular topic. And today is an opportunity to meet with subject matter experts who are sitting at the table to share some of their thoughts and some of their personal initiatives. And then, of course, we do have members of the audience who have particular expertise that we will draw out in the discussions also. But thank you for joining us, and it is my distinct pleasure to introduce the Lieutenant Governor Gilchrist.
General Rogers, thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. It really is a privilege to be here to serve you and to have this conversation around the work that we can do together as a state of Michigan to support service members, veterans, and their families in their overall health. And most importantly, and most specifically for this conversation, how we can support mental and behavioral opportunities for health opportunities, as well as the prevention of suicidal ideation and suicide. This is something that has been a challenge since time immemorial, honestly. But we, over the last several years, at least have been able to acquire a bit more language and understanding about how we can notice, how we can be more responsive, and how we can be more effective in working with people to really give them an opportunity to be their best and understand what support means, what it looks like, how it can be flexible, and again, how to respond to people's individual needs as well as this collective population. And I want to thank all the leaders represented here at the table. Major General Rogers, thank you, sir, for your service and leadership. Director Ollier, thank you as well for setting up and leading meetings up in the state of Michigan. We're proud to have so many people at the table. The legislative leadership here, represented here, Senator Patel, Senator Michael, Representative Conlon. They are a subset of what I've seen as a tremendous bipartisan commitment to ensuring that Michigan can be the best place for our service members, veterans, and their families to live out the days of their life during service and after service, and that when they need support, that support will be granted in the state of Michigan. Governor Whitmer and I are proud to continue to reaffirm our commitment. Just last year in the budget, we were able to work with the legislature to secure $1.2 million for suicide prevention efforts. That is the largest investment that we've made in those efforts since at least the year 2000. We're very proud that this legislature, in the budget that has been sent to the governor, has approved an additional $1.2 million. So doubling that commitment, matching that commitment from last year, I think represents a generational investment in these services. And I hope that shows the commitment that we have. But just having the dollars isn't enough. We need to make sure that those dollars are invested wisely and effectively. And that is what we hope to gain from a conversation like this today. We have experts, we have people who have direct and specific and personal experience with many of these challenges, either themselves individually or with family members or people who they are connected to in a relationship with. And so we want to make sure that we understand all of the nuances and facets of this challenge because it is complicated. And we must be mindful of that. And also recognize, though, that we have an opportunity to address all those complications and all those facets. This is a problem that we can make progress on together, such that we get to a reality in the state of Michigan, and frankly, if Michigan be a leader in the country, will recognize that suicide is preventable. Suicidal ideation is manageable if we choose to work together, if we create space and safety for people to feel comfortable and confident and know that there's a net through which they will not fall if we set it up, build it, and session effectively. So again, General, thank you so much for leading this conversation, We have great work to do in Michigan, and I'm proud to do it together alongside you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Thank you for your steadfast advocacy for our department and for the governor's leadership and commitment to our needs and this topic. So we are very blessed to have that kind of support within the administration and leadership. And we're also very blessed to have the legislators that support us and are personally involved in the topic and in the discussions surrounding it. So thank you, senators and representatives, for being here and being part of the discussion. We look forward to your comments and thoughts on it. I would like to just spend a few minutes and a few brief moments to just summarize what we're doing as a department. Our department is fairly unique. We are a military and veterans affairs, so the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs. And as the name suggests, we have responsibility within this department, both veteran interests across the state, but then also the currently serving Guard member and their families. And within that construct, we have the Army in the air on the military side, but then on the veteran side, we have the Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency, which is responsible for veteran benefits and veteran outreach, which is what we're focused on today. And then we also have the veteran homes. And it's that construct that allows Michigan to maintain a focus on the entire enterprise. And we have a frame of reference that we use to keep ourselves grounded, and it's called Member for Life. And that's a commitment to service members regardless of what branch or service they serve in, active duty, Guard, Reserve, it really doesn't matter. From the minute they raise their hand and swear an oath to defend and support this nation and this state, we as a department are committed to their interests and their priority focus. And that construct allows us to maintain that focus. So it's a great structure, and Michigan is a leader with that type of focus on veterans and service members all within one department. So again, within this department, Military Veterans Affairs has lead for veteran services and outreach. And we're going to spend a lot of time, and I'm going to turn over to Director Ollier in just a moment so we can start to unpack and discuss some of those priorities and those programs. And his leadership is critical to the success. But within the military side of our organization, veteran, or more importantly, service member behavioral health and suicidal ideations and the struggles that our members have with that is a focus. And we have people in our organization that commit their professional skill set on our families and our service members. We have our family programs director, Ms. Pridmore, and we have Ms. Nystrom, who is our behavioral health specialist. And again, they have very specific titles, but the title loses some of the specialties that they have. So that's kind of the way I'll introduce them. So during this discussion or afterward, they are great resources. They are focused on the health and welfare of our current members, and they support those current members. And within the military enterprise in the nation, suicide is an issue. Behavioral health, PTSD, all the issues, the societal issues and pressures are resident within our volunteer force. And in the Michigan National Guard, our membership is from every one of the 83 counties. So we are a reflection of our society and our communities across Michigan. And it's important that we are active and engaged with the families in those communities and the services that are provided through those local and county entities. So those are the two that really help lead us through it. We also have a very active chaplain corps that are engaged with our service members there and responsive to their needs. So I quite often speak to a record, and I don't want to offend anyone, but I use it because of our, in our culture, that sports analogy is pretty shaping and forming with how we approach things. But, within the department, since I became the Adjutant General, we have a record of 145 and 10. Now, in this topic, we've had 10 suicides. Each one of them is devastating. It's devastating to our organization. It's devastating to the team members that wear the uniform. It's also devastating to their families. And we don't take that lightly. But on the other side of the equation, we have 145 service members right now today who are or have received help with suicidal ideations and behavioral health and the stress that comes with service and the stress that comes from daily life. And those individuals, either through their own identification or through a family member or a friend or another service member who saw something happening with them, they identified and took hold of that individual and got them connected with the services that they so crucially need. And the resources that are required to support that are paramount. Again, we're going to talk a little bit about it today. But we always want the winning side of that record. And what I fear are the numbers. What's that X value? What's that number of service members in our organization who are serving our country and our state today who need help and have not been identified or have not self-identified? And we want to make sure we have programs and conversations going on that reach out to these folks, remove the barriers, remove the stigma so they feel comfortable coming back to the organization and seeking the help. And the what used to be a stigma in the past, that people were fearful what it would do to their career, I just want to reiterate, we have 145 members today receiving help. That is not part of any criteria, is not part of any conversation when it comes to their career options and our investment into them as active serving members. So the stigma should not be a concern, but it still is, and we need to actively work to resolve that. So with that being said, I'd like to now transition over to Director Ollier, who is leading our Military Veterans Affairs Agency, and he is going to introduce you to the programs and run the rest of this dialogue for us.
Thanks, Roland. My name is Adam Ollier, and I have the pleasure of leading the MVAA. And what I want to start with is talking about how we view suicide. Suicide is our #1 priority because it's everything, right? It is the difference between something having one more day and us being able to provide services, but we cannot help service members that are not still here. And the biggest problem that we have in that regard is that we don't know every service member in the state of Michigan. We believe that there are about 650,000 people who have raised their right hand and said, hey, send me in front of them. And we have about 300,000 people in our list, up from a little over 100 before. And the reason that that's so important is because every suicide death that we lose is based on data from 2 years ago that the big VA does. And they don't have any good answers. So if you're a coroner in Detroit, in Manistee, in Iron Mountain, that veteran would have had to self-identify that they were a veteran for us to even be able to count them. And so our first task is making sure we know who these people are. And the ones that are not involved in the American Legion, in some of these organizations that we know are doing incredible work, are the ones that we have most tasked with helping, which is why we launched our I Am a Veteran, I Serve campaign, to highlight the lives and experiences of people whose military service was different, right? Folks who came from different backgrounds. We highlighted a tribal citizen because Native American people serve at the highest levels, but are often still missed out, are often still missing in our records and our keeping and engagement. A biracial person, we dealt with a transgender woman who during her service wasn't able to continue, right? Because of her self-identity, she got out of the military. And same thing with a variety of folks whose military service was not the way that they had intended when they enlisted, when they said, hey, send me. And those are the ones who have the real challenges. I mean, on a personal note, right before I was going away for some training, interacted with a guy who was getting his life together and was moving forward and was in the best place that he had been in a long time, except he was losing his house. And at MVAA, we were able to help him maintain space and housing for some period of time. But right at that moment where things were kind of going up and it wasn't 100% set up, he had enough strength and willingness to follow through on his suicidal ideations. Because we noticed that right in that last moment where things have been down for so long, that at the moment where things are starting to come up, they're like, you know what? I do have enough energy in it. It's been going really good for the last week or 2 weeks. It's probably not going to get better tomorrow. And that's the challenge that we have, which is why we brought all these partners, which is the work that we do as an agency all day, every day, is to make sure that people believe that tomorrow can be better than today. And that's not something that too many of our service members have been feeling, because they left a meaningful job where they got an opportunity to serve, and it was a part of their identity that now is transitioned to just a job. And so when we talk about why suicide prevention is everything, it is a part and a leading force in everything we do, from housing to hiring to everything. It's all about making sure people believe tomorrow has more opportunities than today. And so Michigan has been a leader in the Governor's Challenge, and that is because Governor Whitmer and Lieutenant Governor General Rogers have all been a part of ensuring that as a state, we are prioritizing this in ways that other states have not been able to do. Right? When you think about Michigan, we go to other states, and my team will be able to talk about this in a little bit. They're like, oh, wait, we want to know what you're doing here in Michigan. Because we are so committed to this as the thing that matters the most to us. And so we're grateful that you were willing to show up. We are exceedingly grateful for all the legislators who have prioritized these dollars when other states haven't. Right? When we go across the country and they're like, all right, we got $300,000. Like, oh no, we have $1 million too. They're like, one time? It's like, no. This is the commitment that Michigan is making to the 650,000 veterans of the state of Michigan in perpetuity, because we understand that it is not acceptable to lose the life of people who have served. And so we are exceedingly grateful that you all came to show up to talk about this thing. But if you take one thing from it, it's that Michigan is committed to making sure that service members in the state of Michigan do not take their lives. And we are spending the dollars to do it in this way, but in a whole host of other ways, from the $2 million that went into veteran homelessness, because we see that as a real reason that people are losing their lives. They're like, well, I don't have anywhere to stay, so I'm gonna take my life. You know, we are literally dealt with a case where a spouse took his life because he thought he couldn't provide for his family anymore. And because of other legislation that the state, that our legislators are working on, those kind of things will not continue to happen. So, thank you. Okay, other than, no, that's not true. Great. All right. So next, I'd like to introduce my deputy, Robert Neary, who's been leading on a number of these programs and working tooth and nail to make sure that we're following through on our promise to our service members.
Thank you, Director. And thank you, sir, and thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Legislators, I can't say enough how important it's been that you've created this from a one-time investment to an ongoing investment. What I'd like to do is, well, with our team, talk about that for a minute, especially to the public. What we were able to do initially is we identified that veterans as a whole had a higher propensity to act on suicidal ideation if they were not connected to their veteran benefits or social services that were available to them. And because of that, we proposed that to you 2 years ago, and you all were in support, and you said, yes, absolutely, do campaigns, get more people involved, and then we had this wonderful campaign identifying underserved populations and special populations throughout our state. And what that does is that more individuals wanting to connect to their VA benefits. It's been phenomenal to see it in action. But what happened when you said we're going to make this a priority in perpetuity, that made it so that we can create a section that created, or it's created specifically for mental health and suicidal prevention in the entire space now. As the central coordinating agency for the state of Michigan, being tasked to the department and to the agency, we have the charter to try to organize everything and make sure there's not a vast amount of duplication of services, but also try to get everybody to work together. And with these dollars, we're able to create that team, to create that synergy. Otherwise, we don't have that. And so it's just a phenomenal opportunity. I can't say thank you enough. What that's done is it's been able to create campaigns and programming based off of the Governor's Challenge initiative. For those of you who don't know, Mr. Garvey is going to dive into the Governor's Challenge and what that is. But that entire initiative is influencing what we do in our state, and that is all with our community partners, who some of them are at this table, and your commitment to continue to fund with the executive office as well is making it possible for our state to be the leader in suicide prevention and mental health. We are one of the leaders in the state, as we find out going into NASDAQ and working with some of our states and partners, but that's not possible without the resources and all the partners that are here today. It's just been awesome to see, and I'm very excited to see what's going to happen in the future as these dollars continue to be informed on the biggest needs and the gap areas being informed by the Governor's Challenge and some of the initiatives. So without further ado, I'm going to kick it over to Mr. Garvey to talk about some of the programming.
Thanks, Robert. Good morning. About the Governor's Challenge, there was a couple of things that were touched on beforehand as we went through this. Was identification of who our service members, veterans, and family members are, and then connectedness to benefits. So those are priority areas 1 and 2 of the Michigan Governor's Challenge, which we are part of. So, I mean, it's huge. 1 out of the Governor's Challenge, identify these service members, screen them for suicide risk, and ultimately prevent suicide was the Veteran Connector, which was incepted 2 years ago. With that program, we send materials out to businesses, organizations, and institutions throughout the state. Send them a box of materials. We want to incorporate asking the question, have you or a member of your household served in the military? And what that does, as opposed to asking, are you a veteran? There's many definitions associated with that. But if we just ask if you serve, that's only connecting with one person. If we ask if you or a member of your immediate household has served, we open up that net. We cast that a little bit wider and we can reach a little bit more people. With that, we're going to be doing a new marketing campaign for Veteran Connector associated with videos within MVAA. That's something we're going to take on a little bit later this year. We actually have scripts developed and we're moving forward with that now. Psych Armor training courses. There's 16 courses available via the Psych Armor training portal for Michigan.gov's challenge that organizations and businesses throughout Michigan get free access to, and then they can share that within their organizations. Military culture training, suicide prevention training, things that they can bring into their communities, into their meetings, within their organizations to really just get the conversation going, build that connection, and identify people in their organizations, because the Veteran Connector program is an organization's commitment to their employees, so it even builds an employer-employee relationship. So when that question is asked, have you or a member of your immediate household served, it's not tongue-in-cheek. It's not, okay, thank you for your service. It's, let me take that question a little bit further and ask you, tell me about that. What was your MLS? And that's what these Psych Armor training courses are available to help out with and get that conversation going, because genuine interest from employer to employee makes that next question of, are you connected to your benefits, a little bit easier, and people take it a little bit more seriously, like, this person's in my corner. They want me to be connected to benefits. So that's what we're doing within that. And then even this year, we were also able to initiate an LGBTQ+ Psych Armor training portal initiative and video, which is the first ever of its kind. Hasn't been seen across the nation, so Michigan is leading the effort in the nation for this initiative on this program. That should be going live here within the next year. So I'm going to pass it back off to Director Rogan.
Thanks. We had another member of the team who was slated to be here, but she's very under the weather. But she's been leading a lot of the work around particularly our special populations, and one of the big highlights of that has been the LGBTQ community. And we see that as a special need because trans people in all walks of life have a significantly higher rate of suicidal ideation, and that's particularly pronounced among service members. So we're continuing to work to ensure that those numbers are taken to grips, and that we as a state continue to be a leader in this, which is why we're so invested in the Psych Armor. But we have an incredible panel of folks here. We brought you here not to listen to us, but so that we can hear from you about how we can do a better job supporting our underserved service members. So, folks want to begin?
I'll begin. Hi, I'm Amber Fogarty. I'm the manager of multi-line programs for Consumers Energy here in Michigan. I also serve on the Michigan Women's Veterans Coalition, as well as the National Veterans Energy Board. I think, as I listened to today, what connection I make the most is, you know, the research shows that veterans who have self-worth, strong occupations, good job, not just a job, but a career, obviously fare well. And at Consumers Energy, we are committed to providing great jobs for our veterans. About 11% of our employees are veterans. My ask of you today, Lieutenant Governor, as well as the representatives who are here today, is to strongly continue to not only support the funding for suicide prevention, but also any funding you see coming across your desk that has to do with apprenticeship grants, state apprenticeship grants, going pro talent funds. There's such a strong correlation in the things that we're able to offer to our employees, training-wise, to those veterans when those dollars come through, and we've been able to really capitalize on that funding. So keep up the good work in that regard, and thank you for having me here today.
I appreciate you describing that intersection between creating career pathways and opportunities that are meaningful and robust. We often talk about that in the context of Michiganders in general. We talk about it in the context of young people in particular. But this connection between people seeing viable, fulfilling, and deeply engaging professional possibilities for veterans is something that I know Michigan businesses do better when we're veterans. They see the leadership that people demonstrate in their service showing up in the workplace, and it's better for everyone. So we really appreciate that, and this legislature has certainly been committed very deeply to continuing and deepening the support for the program that you mentioned, the Going Pro Talent Fund. We'll see a continued ongoing support. You will see continued ongoing support for the Reconnect program, which we've seen other veterans be able to take advantage of, and they are well represented in the nearly 200,000 people in Michigan who have walked this tuition-free path toward higher education. The state of Michigan as a result of bipartisan commitment of the legislature. So we certainly will look to continue to also support the apprenticeship funding that's present in the budget that will be signed in the coming days, as well as actually the largest allocation for apprenticeships that have ever existed in the history of the state of Michigan. We believe that expanded set of seats will enable a lot of opportunity for veterans across the state of Michigan. So thank you.
And Amber's here because they're a consumers to goal-friendly employer, one of less than 30 across the entire state. The same thing with Brian from the Goal Veteran Friendly Schools program. So as you talk about that program, I think it really highlights the work that they've been doing.
One of the things I think we can look at as we talk about careers for our veterans is allowing them to utilize some of the experiences they've had during their time serving or as a licensure. I toured a facility in my district just a week ago where somebody said they are targeting veterans to hire for CDL driver positions, but they're not given credit really for all the work they put in, and they've driven vehicles that are much more challenging than the trucks they would drive in that job, right? And so allowing that transition to happen easier, like that, create a better pathway for some individuals.
And one of the things we've done is put somebody in our HR department that speaks that language, that understands what a military transfer looks like and what that language means, transferring to the civilian job facilities.
I would just like to add, we did 2 weeks of hearings this past spring in my committee on mental health, and thank you, Jeff, who was there for all of that. And it led to a Vietnam veteran coming to me and telling me he was connecting for the first time to his health benefits because he was extremely feeling mental challenges. And so I just really want to applaud the reach out you're trying to do, because it seems very sad that 50% of our veterans do not access those benefits. So thank you for that. Also, I had the experience of getting to go and look at, because we talked about alternative therapies, and a few days ago I went and saw the hyperbaric oxygen treatment facility, and I just wondered, are these things that you all are looking at? It's not federally approved, so here's that barrier, but alternative therapies, we know that dogs work very well, and some other things that can help with mental health.
We've got to look at veteran suicide and veteran mental health from a multitude of standpoints. And one of those in particular are the holistic, outside-the-box thinking therapies that are out there, whether it be animal therapy, whether it be outdoor therapy, whether it be spiritual or medicine-based, plant medicine-based therapies. They're all being explored, some more effectively than others, but they're out there, and I think, especially on the legislative side, we need to be open-minded about what's available and what's effective. AFSP is the largest funder of research in suicide prevention in the United States outside of the CDC, and we're taking a veteran focus. I've just been brought on to the National Policy Council to be a veteran voice on that council, and just advocated in DC last month, and it's just been outstanding speaking with people that are allocating funds toward this epidemic, and it's really nice to see that we got some champions here in Michigan as well.
And so, go ahead.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Michael Rutledge. I'm the coordinator of student veteran services at Northern Michigan University. I'm representing the goal level friendly school. The therapeutic value of the achievement of a university degree or a certificate in skilled training is extremely high, particularly in PTS, and then of course that leads over into suicide prevention. I want to thank the state for increasing that MVAA funding. Of course, the active duty veterans have their post-9/11 GI Bill, and now we'll have several returning to UP shortly that will have a portion of that. But the MVAA will offset that percentage that isn't covered. So they'll be able to get through the university experience with a little debt. Of course, part of my job is to help them manage the benefits, but also to connect with veterans that I'm working with and getting to know them as a fellow veteran, and if they need to be referred, or I recommend every veteran go see the VA and to enroll in VA healthcare, because that it is important to be in connection with the VA. I'm assisted greatly in the Upper Peninsula with our very well integrated veteran service network, and I just want to continue to ask the state to support that MVAA funding, and now with extending to the family members. That's also a great benefit for the service members, because it lets them know that the families are being taken care of. And I also want to say to my dog, he's very comfortable in this room. But thank you for the opportunity to come here and speak with you, and I continue to serve. I'm also on the steering committee of the Together with Veterans VA-funded Rural Veteran Suicide Prevention Program, and a lot of the NMU student veteran population is integrated into that. They assist us, and just that getting out and talking to other veterans makes a huge difference.
I appreciate NMU's leadership in this regard for being a veteran school institution, so I want to thank you and the team for that in Northern. And I think what's happening in Marquette is a good example of, I think, a connection of many types of support from the state for our veteran community. Obviously, the state is through funding for the Veterans Facility, renovated Veterans Facility in Marquette to go alongside the two new facilities that function in other parts of the state of Michigan. And I really want to emphasize what you mentioned in terms of those education benefits extending to veterans or service members' family members. I know one of the things, the conversations I've had with service members and veterans across the state of Michigan is that they also need to have peace of mind knowing that their family will be okay. And for these same, for very similar reasons, there's tremendous value in knowing that there are educational opportunities and pathways that are accessible and are affordable, that can connect people to the kinds of career and lifestyle opportunities going forward that will make the person know that everyone's going to be okay, that the people I love are going to be all right, that I am able to take care of them as part of a byproduct of my service. And so that was important to us, and we worked very closely with the TAG for a number of years to make sure we can get that across the finish line. I appreciate the whole team's commitment to making Michigan State that made that sure. This really is a private government that can make a difference.
Within the veterans community, we have our primary outreaches through the Michigan Veterans Coalition. And then in conjunction with the grant we did for that, the county's getting a grant and we coordinate with MVAA. And that's a primary point of contact and information and guidance for anybody who needs the services to prevent a suicide. Also in the publications and at the conventions, those things are addressed. And at the Veterans Summit that we just had in May in Traverse City, one of the things in our very last session, each area was talking about the ways to do outreach, and we came up with, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are massive events that go on, or numerous events that go on throughout the state. So like in 2 weeks, there's going to be a Jazz Fest at Old Town. We should have a presence there. There's going to be in September the Jazz Fest in Detroit. And I'll be there, but I hope we have presence of veteran awareness, information, and people, and things like that.
I think to your point, we have tremendous social services that are kind of linking the dot and doing that. So Brian, I know from MDHHS's standpoint, you guys are doing a lot to make sure that you're covering down in all these places. And when people reach out in other avenues, that they're getting services.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity to be here, serve Lieutenant Governor. I'm the veteran liaison for the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and also an Army and chaplain here, Veteran Michigan. So I've got a lot of experience working with this population. In 2016, the state brought me on to create a program, and it's the Walking with Warriors Veteran Navigator Program. And what we've done basically is we've taken 30 veterans and saturated the community. And we're identifying veterans that otherwise are unidentified. We are connecting them with essential we are advocating for them until we can build self-advocacy into their lives. Data I just received this morning, we're just short of 30,000 veterans since November 2016 we've been interacting with. We've only had one suicide. So we are swinging the needle, and we're doing that because we're in their communities, we're in their regions, we're in their neighborhoods, and we're looking at them. They're all veterans working with them. Some of the veterans that are working with them are people that are in our government currently working with me on this project. We're working with now with World Maker International to begin a program to drive us into the community. Because those of us in the veteran population, we know the language around suicide, but our communities don't, and our families. And we've seen this, I've seen this personally in my interaction with casualty notification through soldiers that have self-inflicted. And so what we want to do is we want to teach them what we know in our community. So we're beginning that process beginning in October. And I want to thank the legislation for the work you've done, for the work in perpetuity, because we are using every last dime to end this. We're getting calls now from Oregon, Washington, North Dakota, Florida, New York, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, and Ohio about what we're doing here. And a lot of people don't even know that we exist. We have swung the needle on suicide. We got 1 out of 30,000 now. We work with, the beauty of it is, at the end of the day, because of the public funded dollars that we did in the legislature, we're able to touch those veterans that can't be touched by the VA, can't be touched because of care physician discharge. We work with the dishonorable discharge, other than honorable discharge. We work with family members that can't necessarily be seen by the VA. So we're across the scope of care, and our workers, our team is doing phenomenal work. I'm super proud of them. We just speaking about spiritual. We just came out of a moral injury training. Robert presented yesterday morning. So we're making sure that our team is trained in every aspect of care around suicide prevention and the lowering of stigma. So thank you for the opportunity to have us.
Well, I appreciate that the change with the stigma is really important, and it's changing from the establishment perspective, but getting it to change within their minds individually as individuals who are dealing with this, I think is a bit of a challenge. And it almost is a campaign sort of situation. I'm lucky to live in a county that has a large veteran department. And there are billboards all over our county, and we run commercials, but I was surprised they analyze everything, and they're on Facebook, they're all over the place. They analyze how they get contacted, and the number one is driving down the street, looking up at the billboard, and saying, you know what, I need to make that phone call. I was really surprised at that. So.
Hi, my name is Deanna Garlin. I'm the Vice President of Social Services at Volunteers for America, Michigan. We're the state's largest nonprofit provider of veteran services here in the state. We cover from Detroit to Grand Rapids. And I really like what you said about that individual conversation. So primarily, we serve veterans experiencing homelessness. A large population of our veterans are other than honorable discharge. So getting them connected to benefits is unlikely, and we're leveraging, what is available to the general public. In our Staff Sergeant Fox grant, which we just started in January, we have 3 peer support specialists, and they're certified through MVHHS's program. And that has been key in changing those individual conversations and breaking down the barriers and the stigma. So our peer support specialists are veterans that have individual experience with suicide, and they're willing to share their story one-on-one and in group settings to help veterans understand that I was there too, and it doesn't have to continue to be this way. And so when we work with them from that suicidal ideation while they're experiencing homelessness and get them into housing with employment, we can really see a different pathway for this veteran than we were able to see when we were just getting them housing, when we were just getting them employment. But the peer support program through MDHHS, I have other DOAs in other states calling me and asking me about it because we're ahead of the game here in Michigan. And so I'm very proud to work with MDHHS and Ken Warner and continue to get peers certified through this training program.
It's awesome. Veterans need to know that when they transition out from active duty or when they're transitioning from active reserve status back home, that there's a safety net and that there's a community that's willing to receive them and get them, not only connect with benefits and to the things that they might be lacking, but also to a community of people that understand them. So I think that's an important part to make things forward.
We're also working really hard on discharge upgrades. So we know that there are a number of people who were discharged for a variety of reasons that would not get them discharged in that status today. And so it's something that we've been working really hard on. I know Rep. Morgan, who wasn't able to be here today, has had a lot of conversations with us about us doing more of that to make sure that veterans who are eligible for these services are able to do them, and that the folks who have less than honorable discharge are much more likely to take their lives for a variety of reasons. And so we really appreciate the work that you're doing. And I know it's been something that's been a priority from the LG as he's been working with these populations. So we want to really emphasize that as a priority here. Is there any?
So last year, Lieutenant Governor, when we sat at the roundtable, we discussed the $750,000 that we were awarded from the federal government for the statutory award Fox grant, which MVAA is also awarded, and they're our social service partner, wonderful partner to have. But you had talked about it, how it was such a blessing that we got that, and we were pushing for the advocacy for the match dollars. Because of that grant, we were able to create a first-time program where a state and social service philanthropy or nonprofit are working together. And so the federal government is trying to benchmark off of what we're doing in the state to try to see how they can replicate that across the entire nation. So it's a really cool, innovative thing that we're able to do. Another one of the cool things from last year. So I just wanted to make sure to highlight that and say that it's just a wonderful blessing to see in action.
That's excellent. I appreciate that. We had that conversation in this room. And one of the things that I hope that we can gather from this conversation is the fact that, what we're learning in the state of Michigan, we must share. Because as the Adjutant General described, we need to get to zero suicides. We need to get to zero. And so if and when we come upon a successful intervention, I think the team's been very good about understanding what works and what can possibly be translated to another situation. And being able to be in a leadership position in terms of forming those kind of partnerships, to me says that it's more motivation for us to continue to compete for more resources, federal, philanthropic, or private partners, as well as continuing to work alongside the legislature to receive ongoing support so that we can be more creative. And because I think, again, every situation is different. Every person is unique. Every person's life is unique. Every person's challenge is unique. But if we can establish that net, that people know that they are supported, that we are here with them and for them, and despite how deep the despair may be, ultimately that is what will help us land on success. And I know that we have a lot more partners in Michigan that are ready, I think, to be more deeply engaged, that we can draw, I won't say off the sidelines per se, but to draw in more fully, have them more bought in to more things that they can do. And I think the partnership we described perhaps to be a solution to that. So,
One of the things that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So good morning, Jeff Frisbee with the National Guard Association of Michigan. We represent the National Guard members, the current serving soldiers, airmen, and their families. This issue is incredibly personal to us as an organization. The general talks about 145 and 10. Those are 10 funerals that we attended. Our service members went to and mourned the loss of their brothers and their sisters who had served with them. And that is a similar story that's told nationwide. Every state can tell the exact same thing when they talk about the service members, the National Guard members who have committed suicide. So it's a personal thing for us as an organization. Within the State Military Department, General Rogers and his team, we had the thought that this is so personal to us, we have to be involved in the solution. And we have to figure out what it is that we can do to be a part of getting to zero, as you mentioned. When you talk about money being invested wisely and spent smartly, you look at the money that the federal government has spent nationwide on this program so far, and we still remain at those higher numbers. We haven't cracked the code on how do we fix this issue. We came across an organization a few years ago that provides medical service dogs to veterans. And amongst 13 years in 34 different states, they've reached zero so far. They've provided a medical service dog to hundreds of veterans and hundreds of Guards members who went into the issue with suicidal allegations, and to this day they have not committed suicide thanks to the support network that service dog has been providing to them. So we decided that we wanted to take our outreach as an organization and make that same concept apply nationwide. And we created a 54 by 24 campaign where we want to make sure that we as an organization are sponsoring a service dog in all 54 states and territories by the year 2024. And we're hoping that we can help those states find a way to get to zero, just like you mentioned. And that's what that program is for.
I appreciate that. So thank you for that commitment. That is an important goal. And I think, again, what that represents is the fact that in so many areas of policy, of program, and of life, we talk about the importance of innovation, the importance of bringing forward solutions that are new, that are different, that are better, that are more effective. And we need to apply this to this, which is one of our most important challenges as a society, as a collection of communities. And so what I hope is also another takeaway from this conversation is that we challenge one another and challenge those who are working alongside us. Are they bringing forward their best and most bold thinking? Are they thinking about partnerships in a new and different and better way and more broadly? Is there an intervention that has worked for a different population that may be able to have a positive impact on this problem and get us closer to zero? Are there research-backed things that we have not yet tried? And I want the entire collection of people thinking about this to know that Michigan is a place that is willing to put these efforts into practice with the hope of saving another life on another day. And that if no other state will welcome the opportunity to test something out, Michigan will. And we think putting that forward, really putting that into the air, we hope will attract some of those great ideas such that not only can reach that goal, but there may be others like it that we can do again to get to zero and to get to zero faster.
I know we could continue this conversation all day, but we'll have to let Lieutenant Governor have the last word there. But just to kind of sum up the discussions, I think we left knowing that being better connected with your veterans benefits is key. Being a part of the community, having meaningful work and educational opportunities are the things that this administration is fully committed to doing. And you all are here at this meeting because you're a key partner in our ability to provide those services to do. There is one kind of big housekeeping thing. The PACT Act, which was signed into law 2 years ago, has a big deadline coming up August 10th. So please reiterate to your folks that they have until August 10th and not 1 minute longer to make sure that they have their application in, because if you do it by the 10th, it'll be backdated to the date of signage. If you wait until August 11th, it's only effective on August 11th. And so as we continue to remind folks about signing up for the benefits that they've earned, this is a big deadline coming up. And I'll pass it back over to Major General Rogers.
And thank you all for sharing your thoughts and being part of the solution and continuing to look for additional ways that we can have a positive outcome for our men and women across this country who raise your right hand and swear an oath to this country. So I appreciate all of what you've done. Again, members of this audience, I know you have a particular expertise, and please follow up and engage with members of this panel in this roundtable discussion. But again, thank you so much for what you're doing, what you continue to do. There should not be barriers. There should not be characterizations of service that get in the way of access to suicide prevention. So we need to continue pushing those things to the side and stay focused on the human being that we're working with and trying to support. So thank you for being here. Lieutenant Governor, any final closing comments?
Just thank everyone for their engagement. We have more work to do, and Governor Whitmer and I